Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Caitlin and this is Loki. He was in my first gear video, so he's making a reappearance in my post-hike gear video too. This year I hiked about 1,600 miles southbound on the Appalachian Trail. As I was preparing for my hike, it was so helpful to see videos from other people what gear they were bringing. But what I really wanted to see more of was what changes people made throughout their hike, because the trail is the best teacher as far as what gear you need and what gear works for you. So even though I didn't complete the whole trail, I wanted to share what changes I made and what I finished my 1,600 mile hike with. And Loki is so excited. He thinks this is all about him. So I've got all the gear out here. This is the gear that I ended and got off the trail with, and I'm gonna share some of the changes that I made throughout my hike. First, let's talk about the pack. This is the pack that I carried for the majority of my hike. Oh my God, Loki, you're gonna get put up. Say bye to Loki. You're getting in the way. All right, starting with my pack. This is the pack that I used for the majority of my hike. I did start with this Z-Packs Arc Hull, and it didn't even make it through the 100-mile wilderness. As soon as I got to my first stop in Monson, I had to get a new pack. As you can see, probably here, it's contorted and I've tried every adjustment. It's wonky and it's flip-flopped. So I had to get a new pack. So I got the ULA Ohm. And I really, really love this pack. It just fit me really nice and it carried loads really well. The only issue I had with it was the top. And this is an option because you can get a roll top, but I didn't like that it was a cinch close. So instead of having a nice clean roll top, it cinches closed, which I didn't really like, but it was doable. Other than that, I loved it. Huge hip belt pockets. I could fit a whole day's worth of snacks in there. I love this pack. Moving into my sleep system. About 1,000 miles in, I decided to switch from my hammock setup to my tent setup. One of the big reasons being I really wanted to have a long-term run with my tent. At that point, I'd only used a tent on short overnight 2-day long hikes, and I wanted to try something different. I also wanted to be more efficient on trail. I was hiking consistently bigger miles pretty much every day, doing high teens, 20s, and I wanted to utilize the shelters because I saw other people who were able to pack up so quickly because they didn't have to set up and take down their tent or their hammock. So I really wanted to specifically have a sleeping pad so I could sleep in the shelters and I could just wake up and go. And it really, really worked because I would wake up and just in 20 minutes be ready to go hiking. So my sleeping pad was the Neo Air X-Lite in the wide version. I've tried to use the normal width versions and it just doesn't work for me. Usually my arm is off the side and it's uncomfortable for me. So I used the wide and absolutely loved it. I also had a pump sack to go with it, which came with the sleeping pad, and I loved that. It made it a lot quicker to pump up. I lost it though right towards the end. I think around Woods Hole Hostel in Virginia, I think I lost it. I could not find it anywhere. Could not find it, but loved this pad. And I would love to get another pump sack. For my tent, I used the Nemo Hornet 2-person tent, and I had the footprint to go with it. It's all in there. The thing is though, from the time I got my tent until the time I got off trail, I literally set this up a total of 3 times my entire rest of the hike. Once I had that sleeping pad, I was so excited. It was great to use the shelters. I barely ever used my tent. It was maybe 3 times total when I was at stealth sites, or there was a spot in town that offered camping, which was one of the big reasons I wanted to switch to a tent. Also because there were several times in the north that there was some random resident in a city that would let you pop up your tent in their yard, and I could never utilize that. So this came in handy for those occasions. I used the Z-Packs Y stakes, the little blue Y stakes. I don't know what they're actually called, but they're from Z-Packs. and they were great. They did the job. I never had any bend on me. They were very durable, and they set up my tent, which is what they were supposed to do the few times that I used it. Next is my quilt. I did keep the quilt that I used when I had my hammock when I switched over to the tent, and I kept it. It's an Enlightenment Equipment Revolution 20-degree quilt, and I absolutely loved it. It's so cozy, and I still love the custom colors I got, and it was just wonderful and perfect. The toe box, the foot box zips up, so it could be a flat blanket, which was nice during the summer when it got really hot. Sometimes I wouldn't even use it. It was so hot at times. But when it did get colder, you could cinch up the foot box. It's just really versatile, and I enjoy this quilt. Still use it down to about 30 degrees is when I'm comfortable using it. I do sleep cold, so even though it's a 20-degree quilt, that is the survival rating for Enlightened Equipment. And so I'll take about 30 degrees is when I'll start getting chilly with this. And then my pillow, I had a pillow and I don't remember what happened to it. I think it popped or it just kept deflating. So I got a new pillow. This is a Sea to Summit Eros Premium pillow, and I liked that the material was nicer. This is one big switch I made. I love, love, love this pillow. This was also really nice in hostels as well. I used it because sometimes you only have one pillow in the hostel. I like to prop my head up a little more. So I really enjoyed having a pillow, would not go back and change it. That was the sleep system. Now moving on to my kitchen. For my food bag, this was something that I thought really long and hard about. I did not carry a regular food bag. I carried an Ursack XL with a smelly proof, basically odor resistant Ziploc bag. And the big reason I did this was just imagining as I was preparing my thru hike, I was just the possibility of having to hang 180 bear lines. I had no desire to. So I got the Ursack, and it was so convenient to be able to just tie it on a tree. I didn't have to go throwing lines in the middle of the night. If I got to camp late, I just threw it up. Did not have to worry about a thing. And then I like the smelly proof bags. I did originally get OpSacks, and I tested those out. I really like the smelly proof just because the top zip, the thread on the top is a lot easier to manage than the OpSacks. The OpSack brand, they just really didn't line up very well. And I was so happy with the Ursack. So because the Ursack is a little bit heavier than having a regular food bag, I did kind of try to taper the weight of some of my other kitchen items. So I used for my stove the BRS little cheap Chinese stove from Amazon, and it was great. It was wonderful. It did the job what it was supposed to do. And for my pot, I used a Tokes 550 milliliter pot and little titanium spoon. And this was my cook system. I did nothing but boil water. That's all I did in my pot. I never cooked in my pot, which worked out very nice to have a smaller stove. Nowadays, when I go backpacking, it depends. Most of the time, I'm gonna cook in my pot for the most of the time when I go out now. So I'll use a bigger stove because this is smaller, so this has more stability. But if I had a bigger pot, I would not use this teeny tiny stove because it's a recipe for a disaster. And then my water system, I used a Sawyer squeeze for the entirety of my hike, and I absolutely enjoyed the Sawyer squeeze. I have no issues with it. I did replace it, I believe once I replaced it. Just I kept on back flushing it, and it immediately would clog right back up. So I was like, you know what, I think it's time to retire it. At the beginning of my hike, I also had a platypus bag. It was like an extra bag that I could roll up if needed. I did not need any extra water carry materials my entire hike except for Pennsylvania. And the thing is, because of the app Gut Hook, which is now known as Far Out, I would be able to look ahead and see if there were any dry spells or dry spots. And if I needed more water carry, I would just, at my next town right before that, I would get an extra smart water bottle or two, and that would be my extra carry. I had no use for any extra water bags or bladders or anything like that. But Sawyer squeeze, great stuff. Next, let's talk about clothes. All right, so my rain gear, I used an Outdoor Research Helium 2 rain jacket. and I loved it. It got beat up to shreds. Like by the end, I still have like especially the armpits are starting to fray. This thing, it's about ready to be retired. It's got some pilling going on, but this rain jacket served me really well. And there were a lot of times I didn't even use a rain jacket. I just saw rain as a free shower, especially in the summertime. It was so hot when there was rain. I very much enjoyed going without a rain jacket, but for when I did have downpours, and this was also great for some extra insulation. But when there were downpours, I loved, loved, loved this rain jacket. And I wanted to mention a change that I made. I did carry a rain skirt at the beginning of my hike, and I never really needed it past maybe New Hampshire. I wore it when it rained just because I had it, but it really wasn't necessary. I honestly used it more in town than I did on trail. There were a couple of times that I stayed at hotels instead of hostels, and hostels usually have loaner clothes. But when I stayed in towns that didn't have hostels and didn't have loaner clothes, I needed to wear something while I was washing my clothes at the laundromat. So this was how I did that. But I ended up sending it home. I don't even remember when I realized I wasn't using it very often. So that is something that I changed. Next, my sleep clothes. And these were also meant to double as cold weather clothes. By the time I got off, it was getting into fall season. So I was expecting to use these potentially to hike out in cool mornings or maybe later in the evening. But these are the same smart wool leggings that I started with. Absolutely love them. They did start to get damaged a little bit. There was a little bit of a hole in the rumpus region that I had to sew up. But other than that, they held up really well. And I have no complaints about them. They're great. And then my sleep shirt is it was a Patagonia Capilene lightweight shirt. And I did love that. I started with this one as a bug shirt because I was starting in Maine in June during black fly season, and I read a lot of research saying that black flies don't like bright colors, which is why I chose this bright yellow shirt. And then it ended up turning into my sleep shirt. All right, this is one of my favorite changes that I made during my hike. Absolute favorite. And to this day, I still wear this in the real world, in the regular world, to the store. I love, love, love this thing. So this is what I used instead of a puffy. It is a light cart gear microgrid fleece hoodie, and I adore this thing so much. It kept me warm, even more so than a puffy, and I love that I could wear it when it was raining. You can't wear a down puffy when it's raining because it can't get wet. It won't insulate as well, but this guy could get wet and it pretty much repelled water. I loved it. So it feels very lightly raining. I would wear this. I loved it so much. So this right here, one of my favorite changes that I made the whole hike. Okay, all right, here's the fun one. We're moving on to socks. So here's a fun number for you. By the end of my hike, I was carrying 7 pairs of socks. Let me break it down for you. If you followed along my vlogs around Massachusetts, I got trench foot because there was a whole month of just pretty much nonstop rain. I even went back and was looking at each of those days. It rained every single day for 23 days straight, where it rained at some point during the day, no breaks, no full day breaks. So I think I got traumatized by that situation and ended up carrying a total of 7 pairs of socks. So I had my sleep socks, these are just, I don't even know what brand they are. I think they're just some cozy little fuzzy socks. Oh, these are from Barefoot Dreams. I love their stuff. It's just some fuzzy socks to keep my feet extra warm. I still wear them now, back home. And then I had 3 full pairs of Injinji toe sock liners and Darn Tough socks. And that's how we get to the 7, because I had 3, and then my sleep socks. I had 3 pairs of the Injinji toe sock liners, and let me tell you, these, I don't know if it's because of these or because of these or because of what combination. I did not get one blister after hiking 4 months, 1,600 miles. I did not get one blister on the trail. It is almost unheard of to not get a blister. Blisters are just commonplace. They're known to be a thing. I did not get one blister the whole trail. And I attribute that, me personally, to the toe socks and the darn toughs. To go along with my socks, I used these Hoka Speed Goats as my trail shoes, and these stood up fantastic. I had a pair that ended up lasting 1,000 miles. Absolutely wonderful. They're so comfortable, and on the inside, I used the green Superfeets. Pull them out. I used the green Superfeets. They're a little, they're a little worn out. It might be time to replace these soon. But these were great and kept my feet comfy and cozy. I got them in the wide version because I did have experience with Ultras and I loved the wide toe box. So having the wide Hokas, it was very similar to having that wide toe box. Oh my gosh, how could I forget? My favorite. Wrapping up the clothing is my glitter Crocs. I have carried these for about a year now. I've had these and they have been my go-to camp shoe. Love them. They are fun, they are spunky, and they are great for camp, town shoes, and even just putting your feet in the water during a nice long lunch break. Love my glitter Crocs. They are never not coming with me on a trip. So, glitter Crocs. Next, I'm gonna talk about my trekking poles. This is a change that I made. I started with the $30 Trail Buddies from Amazon, and those worked great. Eventually, they did wear out. So when I upgraded, when I got new ones, I got some Lecky poles, and these were great. Very similar to the Trail Buddies. The hand grip style at the top is a little bit different, but I absolutely love these. I have no complaints about them. Great trekking pole. Good job. All right, this next section is specific for me because I was very prone to bugs on the trail. So I have a whole section of bug gear, a whole thing here. So this is my bug head net. I had this one. I had a similar one at the beginning, and I just got this one out of a hiker box, and I switched mine for it because why not? And then as the mosquitoes started to taper off, I switched to a little nicer, more natural bug spray because I had been using so much DEET. Again, if you followed my vlogs, I got eaten alive by mosquitoes the entire trail. And about August, they really started to taper off. Once I hit about the halfway point, they started to taper off. But I still occasionally needed bug spray, so I used this one because I had been using so much DEET, because DEET was the only thing that could keep them away. I started to use something a little more natural, just, all right, we're done with DEET. I'm not being completely eaten alive by bugs. And then I always carried some anti-itch cream, and this one I was very passionate about. Whenever I got to a town, I was like, where's the CVS? There has to be a CVS. The CVS brand is the only one that had this kind of minty feel to it, where I would put it on and it would immediately have this soothing feel to it. It immediately made my mosquito bites stop itching. So CVS anti-itch cream was the only one that I would use. I tried other ones. Nope, it was always CVS. So whenever I got to a town, I had to make sure I could get to a CVS if I was out. Next, looking at other toiletry items, my bag, I didn't use this bag. This is a Dyneema little stuff sack. Mine finally just completely fell apart, the one I used on the trail. Inside, I have some Gold Bond Defense little, what do you call those? For chafing, it worked really well. I like it a lot better than Body Glide. Body Glide was kind of thick, so it actually made the problem worse, and like my thighs would stick together. And then the next one was my toothbrush. I liked having a foldable toothbrush. It just kind of kept things clean, and if there happened to get dirt in my bag, you know, I wasn't brushing my teeth with dirt. And so I did enjoy having a foldable toothbrush. I also kept my needle and thread. So I had this needle in a little twisty plastic thing from, I don't know, probably, actually no, my mom gave this to me. And then some mint floss that I used as floss and also to make any repairs. I also carried some KT tape and some Leuko tape, and still always do. I had some issues with like the bottoms of my feet, the balls of my feet. That was really helpful with the KT tape. And then with Leuko tape, I actually gave this more to other people than I used it for myself. As I mentioned, I didn't get any blisters. I used this more as a repair thing and giving to other people more than actually using it myself. But I was very glad that I had it as a just in case. And then I had some basic medicines, ibuprofen, definitely multivitamins, because my nutrition was just not having it on the trail and I could see that my body was not happy. And then earplugs. This one, a huge thing that I used in the shelters. There might have been someone snoring next to me, or maybe there were some spooky sounds in the night. Earplugs, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, other toiletry items. This one's specific because I'm a girl. I used a Kula cloth, which is a pee rag, and it was great. Had no issues with it. I loved my pee rag, wonderful, self-explanatory, does the job. And then the next part was the other body function. My Deuce of Spades trowel worked excellent. It dug holes that I pooped in. I will say I used this more towards the end. I did not like using the privies. A lot of them were very gross and there were critters in there, and I felt more comfortable digging a hole. The final category is going to be electronics. So I used, for the majority of my hike, I used this 20. There's something in there shaking. I used an Anchor 20,000 milliamp hour battery pack. I used my phone a lot for recording, taking pictures, and using the GutHook app. So this was wonderful to have 20,000. It was probably overkill. I don't think there was any time when it completely ran out, but I liked having the extra confidence and the peace of mind that I would never run out of battery. I also have my Garmin InReach Mini, and this one was more of a peace of mind than something I actually used. I usually had cell phone service at least once a day, usually multiple times a day. Pretty much every time you go up, any kind of up, you have service, and when you go down, you don't have service. So usually if I was camping down somewhere, I would send my last text of the day with my phone at my last big up and then go down. But I did also, this was another peace of mind thing, I did have that SOS button. And if I fell off a mountain somewhere, I could have a helicopter come pick me up. Next was my headlamp. I used the Petzl Bindi. It was wonderful. It did the job and it had the red light. So if I did get into camp, and I was, usually for me, it was waking up early at camp. I could use the red light and not disturb anyone who was still sleeping. And then finally, my headphones. I had these in purple and I have them in orange. They are just wireless headphones and they're waterproof as well. The battery life on these was fantastic. I usually didn't even have to recharge them with my battery pack. I usually just recharged them in town and I would listen to music all day long. These lasted, I would usually just do one at a time. So it automatically kind of doubled the battery power. And these were fantastic. They're teeny tiny and the battery life was excellent and they are waterproof. So if I could go back and start all over, would I change anything? What changes would I have made? So as far as my backpack, I have gone through so many backpacks over the past year or so. I actually now have a new backpack that I use, which now it would have probably been my go-to pack to start with. It is the Hyperlite 2400. I think if I was restarting a thru hike, I'd probably go with the 3400, which is just the next size up for more carrying capacity. I originally got this pack because it was smaller and I really liked the design of it. I've always wanted to try a Hyperlite and I needed something smaller now that I mostly just go on weekend trips, but now that I'm using it, I love, love, love this pack. So if I was starting over, I'd probably start with a Hyperlight, but go one more size up to the 3400s. Another big change that I would do instead, looking back, I would probably not use the Ursack. I didn't have to hang as many times. Like I was thinking, would I have to hang in this situation? I didn't have to hang as many times as I thought I would. There were either bear boxes or there were enough people in the shelter to where we could hang our food in the shelter and it wasn't an issue. Because if there were any critters that came to visit, we could just yell at them and they'd go away, or there's like 7 of us in the shelter. No one's gonna mess with us with our food with 7 people in the shelter. So I would have gone with a lighter food bag to just keep, probably would still use the odor resistant bag just to kind of deter critters from coming. But that's another change that I would make now on my new trips that I go on. And then finally, my tent system. I still prefer my hammock when I go out. If the weather is the right weather and it's not too windy, I will still choose my hammock over a tent. I'm sorry, bud. However, I'm in the process. I am working on getting a new 4-legged hiking buddy. So the tent may end up being what I use when my new hiking buddy arrives. Because that usually works for 4-legged hiking buddies. So I do prefer my hammock if that's an option. However, I may end up being a full-time tenter in the future. Okay, that was all the gear that I left the Appalachian Trail with. I think it's helpful to see not just what people start with, but also seeing, post-hike, what do people use or what did people use at the end of their hike to see those changes, because the trail really teaches you what gear truly works for you and what gear truly does not. And it really just takes a lot of use and a lot of practice and just trial and error to learn what works for you. So that was my post long section hike gear video. Hope you enjoyed. Toodles. Loki says bye.